When you sit down to write a movie, is it always a collaborative process for you? Is it always like either with Evan or whoever, or do you ever go into a room alone and write?
I do write alone. I'll like brainstorm alone, or I will just write alone. But in general, with movies, like I do most of it with Evan, and almost all of it together, like in a room.
How'd you meet Evan?
Bar mitzvah class when I was 12.
Really?
Yeah.
And was it an immediate like, oh, this is my like counterpart? Like, did you?
We became friends pretty fast, yeah. And like I was like interested in writing and comedy, and
at 12.
Yeah, and so was he. Like he wrote like short stories, and when you're 12 and you like writing and you meet another kid who likes writing, it's like a very easy connection. And we both like comic books. Like we had a lot. We just had a lot in common, and so we started hanging out, and we started trying to write Superbad like when we were like 13. Like very quickly we decided to try to write a movie together.
So that was your first attempt at a film, was Superbad.
Uh-huh.
And it's weird because the characters in
Superbad
are...
It only took around 10 to 12 years.
Yeah, but the characters in Superbad are 17.
Yes.
So when you were 13, were you writing about 17-year-olds?
No, when we were 13, they were 13, and then they got older as we got older. I think when we were 13, we probably didn't even realize we should be paying much attention to how old they were. It was like, they're
like us.
Yeah, exactly. They're just like us. And then as we got older, we were like, oh, as a movie, it should have context, and you should understand like that they're maybe gonna graduate soon, and all these, like, at first it was just almost like scenes of things that had happened to us, it's almost like was like high school sketches.
Right.
It was like zoning out in Spanish class. Some of this, like, real, like, you know, sitting in the cafeteria, making fun of the other kids, like, things that we did, like, and then we'd go to a party and something would happen, and we would just, it was kind of like writing out shit that had happened to us in, like, scene form, basically, and making it funnier than it was in real life, and adding jokes and punchlines and stuff like that. And then slowly, over the next couple of years, it like got this structure of like, oh, it could be about these guys who were trying to lose their virginity, kind of, and then college is coming, and then beyond that, we were like, oh, it would be great if it had like a deeper emotional story about separation and all these things that, as we went from being 13 to 22, we got much more comfortable talking about and just more context on, as you know, as it had kind of gone in the past a little bit.
Right. Well, I'm just curious if the way you guys wrote scenes originally for Superbad, if they're still, if your process and structure is still similar to the way it was when you started.
Yeah, very similar. It's almost exactly the same, honestly. We would write in his sister's bedroom. There was a family computer, and we would go there after school. Eventually, maybe that's when we were like 12 or 13. And eventually, yeah, at first it was just like sketch, like again, like we'd be like, oh, at that party this weekend, like Dan and Matt got in a fight over him taking his beer. Like, let's write that, you know? Like, once we stole a keg, and so we had to like crack it open, and because we didn't have the pump, and so we would pour the beer, and we stored it in all these weird containers, and we kept it in like detergent jugs, and which
like
is why in Superbad he does that. And so we kind of would just write down these funny things that were happening, and then as we got a little older, I remember like when we were like 6, like I started smoking weed, so I would want to get out of the house and write somewhere else. We would literally sit in my grandparents', I would borrow their Volvo, and we would just park it on the street in Vancouver, and that's when laptops, around then you could get one. And so we would literally sit in a parked car on the street and smoke weed and write on a laptop computer for
no
hours.
Difference to now.
Sometimes we'd sit in an alley, literally, like, yeah, it's not that different, honestly. Like, now we understand so much more about like the structure of movies and how to, but even that we're trying to challenge and come up with new ways of doing this and not just fall into, you know, the way that we've been doing it, but also try to do what we're good at the same time.
Hey folks, thanks for watching. If you like what you just saw, then why not subscribe? Click right here for lots more off camera. And if you want to see the hour-long version of these conversations, I'm going to give you the secret link. Here it is, offcamera.com. Check it out.